If you're ready to unlock your potential to transform the world around you, then join us here on the Lovin Leadership Podcast as we dive into the art of leadership, exploring cutting-edge strategies and timeless wisdom, empowering you to become the exceptional leader you were born to be. You'll learn from inspiring interviews with visionaries, changemakers, and thought leaders who give us practical and actionable, real-life leadership strategies, and we'll celebrate authenticity and empathy because leadership is about connecting with others on a profound level. So if you're ready to transform your leadership journey, don't miss a single episode of the Lovin Leadership Podcast. Subscribe today for access to a wealth of wisdom, inspiration, and actionable strategies. Let's redefine leadership and create a world where every leader leads with love, passion, and purpose. This podcast is proudly supported by the College of St. Mary, dedicated to uncovering the essence of exceptional leadership for today's world and beyond. Enrich your leadership journey alongside a cohort of industry experts through the Master of Science in Organizational Leadership program at CSM. Crafted to suit your schedule, this online degree can be yours in just 12 months. Are you prepared to soar in your career? Take the leap forward with the College of St. Mary, shaping leaders for tomorrow. Explore your potential today and learn more at csm.edu/MSOL. Welcome to the Lovin Leadership Podcast, where we bring you interviews with extraordinary leaders who are changing the world. I'm Dr. Beth Merkel, your Lovin Leadership Podcast host. And today we're so lucky to have Amber Vanderburg in the spotlight. Amber is not your average business person. She's a global dynamic force for leadership excellence. As a multi-award-winning international entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and founder of the Pathwayz Group, her impact has reached over 800,000 learners in more than 75 countries. In 2022, she added author to her list of accomplishments with the release of her debut business adventure book, Uniquely Better, a guide to elevating team performance. Her book is based on her real-life experience as the sole female American and blonde football coach for Adidas Gameday Academy and Paris Saint Germain Academy in Bangalore, India. Thank you for joining me on the Lovin Leadership Podcast, Amber Vanderburg.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is such a pleasure to have you here. We really haven't known each other for very long. Just to catch the audience up on how I know you and how you know me, we both participated in an Association for Talent Development conference a few months back. And you were so amazing in that you just reached out to me and said you'd like to do coffee and connect. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, sure, that's awesome. I always like to have another wonderful dynamic person in my life who can have too many of those. Mm-hmm. And so we met, and goodness, did we chat for 2 hours at least?
Oh, nonstop. Yeah. Immediate friendship. It was amazing.
Immediate friendship. One of those. So I just knew that Amber was a great match for this podcast, for the audience, she just embodies the whole idea of what Lovin Leadership means through her work with the Pathwayz Group, which is what I want to start talking about here a little bit. So you started your company called the Pathwayz Group in 2019, and in a very short time, your company has grown into a global leadership, talent development, and team building force that delivers high energy interactive sessions with organizations, including no less than Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. I'm blown away by this, by your success. And I'm hoping we can start the conversation with you giving us some context before we get moving too far about how you went from college student to football coach to global learning businesswoman.
Yeah, great question, great lead up. So a little bit of background about myself. I have always been interested in continuously learning about team performance. So whenever I was in undergraduate school, I was studying organizational communications, organizational leadership, organizational dynamics, and was very involved in the HR training and development associations. Actually parlayed that into my first corporate job, working with a large healthcare organization, working in human resources. I did a variety of HR roles there. I was a corporate recruiter for a time, worked in comp and benefits for a short time, worked with learning and development, talent development, employee relations. So really worked my way through the HR department, gaining so many insights from a very large HR department. We had about 50 people at the time. And the time came for me to really climb up the corporate ladder as I was building my HR experience. But an opportunity came as I was finishing my graduate degree.
Isn't that funny that opportunities often just knock when you're not expecting them, and it's frequently right about the time you finish up a degree.
Right about the time. So I've been doing HR for about 5-6 years at this point, really all throughout my undergraduate and graduate career. But I had also done I was a Division I athlete in track and field and cross country. And I had gotten a coaching license to coach soccer. And I was at a dinner one night and somebody said, have you ever thought about combining your business experience, your love of sports, and I love to travel. I had done quite a bit of travel. They said, and your experience with the international community and in travel, have you thought about putting all of that together? And I said, I didn't know that exists. No, I hadn't thought about it. Please tell me more. And this was actually at a dinner for the United Nations of Oklahoma, which is the state where I'm from. And they said there is an opportunity in India to work with Paris Saint-Germain, which is the French football club or soccer club in Paris, and Adidas Gameday Academy. So that's a football grassroots. They said both of them have an academy in Bangalore, India, and they're looking for a coach to come in, and the vision that was cast is to lay the foundation for India to become a great sports nation. And so I said, this sounds great. So I parlayed. So I laid down the corporate life for a time, and I traded in my heels for a pair of muddy cleats, traded in my office for a field. And I spent some time in India working with a variety of teams. I worked with over a dozen teams, mostly boys with a few girls, ages 6 to about 16. While I worked there, we did some pretty dramatic shifts in the way that we were operating, going from more of a command obey dynamic to one of more creativity, collaboration, and some real ownership within our style of play. And so that was a huge opportunity to take the skills that I had learned in corporate and apply them in a whole new setting. I went on to work with several other teams throughout Southeast Asia. I worked with some teams in Vietnam and China and the Philippines, working with a variety of academies and organizations. Mm-hmm. Whenever I came back to the United States, I was offered an opportunity to become the HR director of a national education leadership company. Now you might think, oh, that's a little bit different. It's honestly the same, right? We're helping teams perform better. So we're helping medical teams perform better. Now we're helping sports teams perform better. Now we're working with education. I was working with a company. They were in all 50 states. So I was going all over the country, helping to build curriculum design, deliver curriculum to help teams perform better, to help people be better. And I loved that opportunity. I loved that job. As you can imagine, throughout all of these, I'm building curriculum, I'm building design, building instruction. I'm gaining different types of tools. I was telling someone the other day, really my design comes from corporate education, sports education and a traditional education. So it's a unique instructional design that weighs on the benefits and the highlights of all three areas. And
I think that's, excuse me for jumping in here, but I think that's so important to know that, leadership isn't prescribed. It comes from all over our human experience. And certainly look at you. You took your experiences and what seemed to you, because perhaps you were too close to them, seemed kind of disparate. Somebody said, well, why don't you put all that together? And you're like, well, okay. And it worked.
Absolutely.
At least, a running theme for those who are familiar with the podcast is sports leaders or athletes. So we had Dr. Fit and Fabulous, we had Dr. Larry Widman and yourself, who all come from an athletic background, talking about leadership and how it applies now to their business world. So, and life in general. It's a very clear scoreboard, right? Have we done what we set out to do?
And there's so many amazing life skills that you learn while you're going through that game that can be applied anywhere. And so while I was HR director, I was at a company I absolutely loved. Incredible people, great time of growth and being around leaders that modeled the way. But in that time, I found that I was being asked to give keynotes and give some workshops. The doors were opening up for me to do some online learning. And it got to the point where I was doing that more. I was enjoying that more. And so, you say, yes, we have grown very quickly. This has been years and years and years before, the business was actually established, been building these connections, building this content. And so I went to the CEO and sat down and started my own company in February of 2020. So little did we know that
there's a little going on.
Little did I know that the world was going to change very quickly. But in that time, it actually opened up so many doors. We didn't really have to, or at this point, it was just me. I didn't have to look and say, oh, I have to change what I'm doing, and say, well, I have a blank slate, so let me figure it out. And this is really where we grew now, where we grew as a company with our international connections, with our engaging instructional design, and really some strategic sessions and facilitation that helps get down to that action step. Mm-hmm. So really that time of 2020, it opened so many doors for us to build that global following, to build those deeper connections with some larger organizations.
I think that pause that we all had to take, from a global social perspective, dare I say the word pandemic era, just caused people to look at how we're doing things. So perhaps your timing, while it from a logic perspective, it might seem like a terrible time to launch a business, but maybe the perfect time to launch Pathwayz Group. Right.
It's all how you embrace the pause, right? What we did, the work that we did in the pause, we're seeing some of those benefits today, almost 4 years later. It really, in hindsight, it ended up being a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so recently, you took these experiences and said, well, I'm going to write a book, because that's what people like you do. Like, what else haven't I done? Well, I haven't written a book yet. And your book is called Uniquely Better.
Yes.
And in it, you explore team building and team culture. So by the time you put it all together, here's what I'm imagining is going on in Amber's head. You've got these experiences on the field with young people in India. You've got these experiences in corporate life, and big companies in HR, and you've got just life experiences in general, and you're connecting these dots, and it came together in a book. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah. So it really is some of those basic concepts that can be applied across industries. The way that it's written, just for ease of follow, is it's following one portion, so a football team specifically, and what that transformation looks like in establishing competitive advantage. If you haven't told from our conversation, I like to win. I like those final, have we made an impact? What is the impact here? And so it's really that story of what are the specific areas where we can establish competitive advantage within our culture. Many times we talk about the competitive advantage within, we talk about marketing, right? Price, place, right? All of the places where we can find competitive advantage externally. Mm-hmm. What I look at is what is the difference? Let's say we're talking about working from home. What is the difference between me sitting in this chair, working for the Pathwayz Group versus working for my competitor? And the answer has to be something more than pay. What is it that differentiates your culture and your company from somebody else? What is it within your performance, within your service, that differentiates you from everybody else? And so looking at that within the course of a football team, and say, okay, our football team wants to win. Well, so does everybody else. What are the practices? What are the habits? What's the leadership within these teams? Again, told within the illustration, a true life illustration.
Case study. In my world, we'd call it a case study.
Case study. And then I give examples of how it can be applied in any organization today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so making sure that we are creating a culture that, these are my words, but that uplifts people, that, I don't know, I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of connects to a higher purpose, a greater than just making a product or providing a service and making money, which I'm not against making money, do not get me wrong.
Exactly.
But it has to be more.
It has to be more. And what you're saying is a part of that. We can get even deeper in the strategy. So I'll look at, and what the facilitators within my team do is we'll look at what are the processes and the systems within your team. I'll give you an example. I was working with an organization, and they were having some higher turnover with some of their contractors specifically. And so we started asking, what's going on? And the process of submitting some of the paperwork, the time cards, it was taking hours and hours and hours and hours because the process that was there was so complex. What do? We simplified it, and we just saw that, I have so many more hours back. And we started to see retention rise, right? So you're looking at these processes, your systems. What is the way that we operate? We see this whenever we go through a drive-through line, right? What's the difference between me going through that drive-through versus another one? The competitive advantage in there is not necessarily the food at that moment. It's who's going to get me through quicker. We look at the cycle times of recruitment. It takes one team, a couple of weeks. It takes another team 6 months. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's that process? That actually has a big part in the culture that you use. The systems and the processes impact your culture dramatically, right? We'll look at the resources and the methods, right? What are the tools used within your team? The true story, whenever I was working in corporate, our main method of communication was email. Whenever I went to a smaller company, still national education leadership company, larger company, but smaller than big corporate America, I was sending my emails and getting a slower pace than what I was used to in my responses. So I asked someone, And they said, oh, Amber, we use Slack mainly for our internal communication. That method, that tool of communication dramatically impacted the culture in the way that emojis were used, GIFs, the casual nature, right? You have threads instead. This is a tool, it's a method that actually impacts the habits, right? So culture is your habits and behaviors within the team. And here we can actually get strategic. So we'll look at our methods. Next, we look at our projects and our initiatives, our events. What are these? This is going to be any project with a beginning and an end. What are the projects that help reinforce and highlight the culture that you're seeking? Now, within football, this is pretty easy. It's a match, it's a tournament, it's a team building event, right? So there's constant events, initiatives that we have. And then the last thing is what you allude to, the people, right? The actual roles that you have, right? And so we've seen this, right? You go into organizations that have amazing, fantastic, incredible people, and they're operating under systems that are terrible, right? And this is where you see, right? And they go, oh, we need to train the people better. The people are fantastic. Give them a process where they can do their job, right? And we see it where you have a great process and a great system, and you have people that are may not have the training to do their job. They may not have the motivation to be in the right job, right? So there might be an issue there. And so it's not, oh, we're going to work on this one thing. It's looking at all four of these areas specifically. Now that's on a micro or on a macro level. Mm-hmm. We can actually take this in and say, I use the example, so I'll stick with it. We want to be better. We want to be uniquely better in our recruitment. Okay, that's a good question. Let's ask it more specifically 4 times. How are we uniquely better? What's our competitive advantage in our systems and in our processes within recruitment? How are we uniquely better within the tools, the methods, the resources that we use? So the process may be the whole process from the time I see the application to the time I get hired. The method may be the applicant tracking system that you use. It may be, are you doing online versus in person, right? That's going to be a method of communication, method of interviewing. Your projects might be a recruitment event. It may be a marketing initiative for new jobs, right? These are one-off events that you can do. And then the role is going to be your role as a recruiter. Do you have an onboarding specialist, right? What are the roles that you're playing in the lives of the people you're wanting to bring onto the team? Now that's an example within recruitment. But we can use that for anything that we want to do to help build our culture, not just in an idea, but actually with a strategy, and say, we're going to get better and we're going to ask these specific questions that lead to action steps each step of the way.
What I'm hearing you say is that, Beth, a mid-level manager / leader who perhaps is in one of these legacy companies or one of these companies that's not optimizing their processes, but I know I have this amazing team, or I'm new and I'm not quite sure what's going on. But what I'm hearing you say is by asking the series of how are we uniquely better questions, we can start to understand that culture that we have in place, mm-hmm. and identify the gaps, mm-hmm. in that culture, which then, gets worked into our strategic plan or our yearly goals or whatever.
Exactly. And the reason why I call it uniquely better is, yes, we want to be better. If you're looking at something like recruitment or performance or systems, we need to also we're going to be different, right? This is where competitive differentiation is a part of competitive advantage. So we're going to be not just better. We ourselves are going to be better, but we're going to be uniquely better. Again, what's the difference between me sitting in this chair working for the Pathwayz Group versus the competitor? I have to know what that answer is. And these types of questions ideally get you to some sort of action step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking of it in terms of, what is actionable, what can our listeners take away with them and say, "Ooh, I'm going to do this tomorrow in my workplace." And I think that's a great place to start by asking these, how are we uniquely better questions, quite specifically, and then listening for the answer, whether asking it of yourself and all the people, everyone you can possibly ask it of.
And and I'll go one step deeper. I gave an example of recruitment. We've done this, diversity and inclusion initiatives, talent acquisition, upskilling, right? Succession planning, right? So you can use whatever it is. Coming to that consensus with the team first is asking, and you and I have talked about this. There's 17,000 things that are important. What's taking priority right now? Okay, how can we create a plan to stay focused within that priority? Because if we're trying to ask all 4 of these questions with 17 different objectives, that's where we can get, it can be less effective.
This is absolutely
that priority is first.
Yes, critical for those companies that are like yours that kind of scaled up pretty quickly, for those that are facing a whole lot of change right now and having to restructure. There's just so many things to think about all at once. Mm-hmm. I love that you give us a tool to come in to focus. So ask, what are our differentiators? What differentiators are we missing? And with that information, prioritizing so you can actually get a foothold and make some progress forward. So many organizations are in this space right now, and need this practical advice. So thank you.
It is, and it's challenging because I sometimes whenever we say this, I hear leaders respond. They go, "Yes, but it's important." Saying something that is not priority doesn't mean it's not important. It means there's a lot of things that are very important. This is what is priority now. And we have a very open, because as you said, we've scaled fairly quickly within my organization. And as the leader, it is my job not only to control the direction of the company, but also the pace. So I'm constantly looking at, burnout, looking at, am I controlling the pace in a way that is sustainable? And sometimes that means, and I've had to tell this to my team, that they'll come and say, "Amber, this is really important." I'll say, "This is important. We will not have the bandwidth to do this with excellence for another 6 months." Now, if I say that, which I have said that means 6 months later, I'm going to come to the team and say, "Hey, it's been 6 months. We have the bandwidth. We've finished up these projects. We're in a good place here. This is now priority." So they know that they've been heard, and they've been given an honest timeline. And yes, it is important. It wasn't priority 6 months ago. Can it wait 2 years? Not really, but it can wait 6 months. So now we're going to do this with excellence. And I have a whole list of things that if I wanted to just work my team to the bone, we could get that all done and then everyone would be miserable. That's not what we're here for. We're here for doing a few things with excellence and then scaling at a place that ensures that excellence and ensures that quality and sustainability as we continue to grow. And so that's where knowing the difference between it's important and its priority is different. We see this in our personal lives too, right? I know it's important to read every day and work out and eat. And you know what? Some days you go, the workout might not happen today. Whenever I did Division I athletics, the workout was the priority every day. I had a team that was relying on me. Today, I have a team that's relying on me and working out is not priority for that. I still work out for other reasons, but if I miss a workout one day, it's not the same as whenever that was my job. And so priorities, we have that no for now, but not forever. This is important. Is it priority? What does that look like?
That's a skill. We think somehow that when somebody gets the title leader, that they're automatically going to be able to know what is really important, what isn't quite important, and how to prioritize, and they don't. It is a skill that that can be learned, but you have to take the time to learn it.
Practiced.
And practice. Yes, it's not necessarily intuitive. I mean, I can tell you what's important to me. Heck yeah. But is it really important to the entire organization in a way that will promote this excellence that you focus on, which I love? Is it going to promote excellence in the organization, in the people, as part of our differentiator? Are we going to be different in an excellent way instead of, because we all know those companies that are different in a not so great way. Read Glassdoor and you'll find out.
Very quickly, you'll find out.
So I want to just kind of switch gears a little bit, because I'm interested in your global perspective, and not just like regional, but I mean, you've had so many different global experiences. And I'm wondering, would you say that there is a universal set of leadership skills that companies are looking for? And I don't know, I guess I'll start with that. Is there, if you defined a leader, would it be universal across, across all industry? Is there?
It's a good question. You are right. We have done learning in over 75 countries and a lot of different cultures, industries. And I could give you a broad answer of, respect, communication, right? So there's some broad topics. Again, getting that down into action. What I encourage is, okay, we want to improve in communication. Specifically, where in communication do we want to improve? And this is where we have the important versus and priority conversation. I actually was talking to a company just last week that said we have our 27 leadership competencies and we want them taught in a 1-year journey. These are 27 different things that would like to be taught and upskilled. And this is where we really have to be intentional with where we are driving the focus. And this is where I really challenge teams to say, okay, we want team building. What is the purpose of this team building? Is it to fix a team that is having conflict? Is it to improve the team? Are we having a brand new team? Right? That's going to be all different. You're saying that you want to improve in communication. Is that improving in communication during times of change? Improving in communication in giving performance feedback? Improving in communication in having interpersonal and coaching conversations? That's all under that umbrella. And so what we do and what I highly suggest is choosing 3 to 4. So we'll look more quarterly and say the topic for this quarter is performance feedback. That goes communication, performance feedback, giving performance feedback, right? And so,
which is a skill in itself.
Receiving performance feedback, using performance feedback data. You could spend a whole year on this one topic. Okay. And so taking the list of 27 competencies and the vaguer words that I could give and say, these are some universal things people should know. And then make it specific to the challenges of your organization. All right. So I'll give you an example. We're working with an organization right now. Their senior leader, most senior leader, just stepped down, and a couple of their other more executive leaders have also stepped down. Retirement, right? Celebrated, wonderful leader, but other people that went on to some other roles. So nothing really malicious there, but it is a time of dramatic change. The skills that we're focusing on with that organization is going to be different. The skills there is going to be communicating in times of change, leading in times of change, right? So it's that everything is in times of change. This is priority for now. Now let me think. Is goal setting, is that important? Yes. But right now, this is where we're at. We're talking about this right now. How are we leading change? Now, goal setting might be a part of that, but we're doing goal setting in times of change. Everything's focused there. That's going to be very different than the organization we're working with that just went through 3 major the acquisitions, and they're bringing on new team members. It's a large international organization. So they're having more diversity and inclusion conversations. They're having more collaboration conversations. They're wanting to expand and grow. The challenges that they're dealing with still change. It's in a different context. And so you have to look at your organization and say, what are the 3 or 4 competencies in our leaders that are important for the season of life where we are now? What skills do we want to be building up in our leaders today to help them lead through the challenges today? And this is where at times whenever I first was starting, we would go into an organization and start talking about something like change. And then we'd hear from the other leaders and say, that's all good and fine, but we actually need some tools on how to navigate conflict because we have a lot of conflict right now.
Change is full of conflict.
Right? And so you have to say, okay, what is the priority? Where's the focus for right now? What's the immediate? And so
to do that, Amber, we to do it well.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this doesn't go back to that idea of is there a universal set of leadership skills? And that takes tremendous awareness.
Yeah, it does.
Of self-awareness, situational awareness, other awareness, political awareness. You really have to be a consumer of information from all areas where you can get that information, and then know how to use that information well. In my MSOL program with College of St. Mary, I talk about, right off the bat, we learn there are 5 characteristics of a thinking leader. And it starts with awareness. I call it collecting data, right? Just from everywhere you can, just be aware. Second is mindfulness. Like, how am I responding to that, to the data I'm collecting, to what I'm learning? How is it all coming together? And to do that, you have to be in presence, and just not be distracted way too much by the future, not be discouraged by the past or longing for the past, but this present moment experience. And then, of course, reflecting on all of it and evaluating. And so I see those 5 really fitting in with identifying your differentiators and prioritizing effectively. Am I off base here, or is that a synergistic?
There's some synergy there, yes. And so then the next question I would ask is, okay, so what specifically in one of those areas do we want to help upskill, right? So if we're looking from a learning perspective, so here's the skill. How do we apply it to the situation right now? And what is the approach that's necessary? What's the approach that it'd be great to add to the toolbox to help me navigate through this situation? Yeah.
Fantastic. I'd like to kind of move. The little clock is ticking, and I'm like, oh, yeah. We're not sitting in a cafe where we can just sit for 2.5 hours and chat. Although, maybe we should. But I want to get on to just focusing on segueing from, I should say, from kind of what you offer clients at Pathwayz Group, based on your experience and all these wonderful services and ideas. And I really encourage everyone who wants to develop their organization in a meaningful, dynamic way to get in touch with Pathwayz Group. All that information will be on the show notes. But let's get a little bit away from the clients and into Pathwayz itself. And you talk about uplifting communities through great workplaces. I mean, I lifted that right off your website, that's a focus of your organization, uplifting communities through great workplaces. How, it's almost like two opposite things. Like community is one thing, workplace is the other. And I go to one to get away from the other, but right. You're saying no, these are very interdependent, and we can use them, if done right, to improve both areas of life.
It's one of my favorite aspects. Obviously, it's on the website for a reason. It's one of my favorite aspects of the feedback and the testimonials that we get. There's so much research and conversation about how workplaces impact people's physical health and mental health and self-worth. And then we'll go one step further, and you look at workplaces and toxic workplaces and divorce rates or marriage rates, and how this impacts on children and families. And so whenever we say communities, we say this is community, it's relationships. If you're seeing positive relationships modeled, positive communication modeled in your everyday, for many of us, we spend sometimes more time with our work community than we do our families and our actual community. And what we see modeled inside of that place, it does flow into the relationships that we have outside of work. And I'm sure you see this too whenever you're teaching. You talk about a concept and someone goes, you know what, I can use that in my relationship with my partner, right? With my kids, with my family, with my, I just experienced that at the gym, whatever. And this is where we see great workplaces impact entire communities. If you have a place where people come every day and they are seeing positive relationships modeled, they're seeing that self-worth, that purpose, and for some people, we've seen this too, I had poor models of these relationships in my family life or in my community, right? In my relationships. And I came to this workplace and I saw what could be. I saw what positive, uplifting conversations could look like. And then you see healing as well, which this is where we get, I get very optimistic. And what can be, but we start hearing that, right? And so we actually have a document that any testimonial that reinforces that, we just have stories. And so I love going in there every once in a while and just reading the stories of, and some of them, they make you smile and also break your heart a little bit in the greatest way, where they go, this is the first time I've smiled in a couple of weeks. I've been overwhelmed with this. And now I have a tool that I'm going to apply, at work and at home. I now have an idea on how to coach this person, but I've also gotten some tools on to ask the question to myself. And so it makes me so quixotically enthusiastic for what can be done through positive, healthy, great workplaces. And so whenever we say uplifting communities, that's what we mean. Your workplace is a community.
Mm-hmm.
Your workplace impacts the community as a whole.
Mm.
And that is what's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
the best form of the ripple effect, right? Because you go into work and you've got a team of 20 people who directly report to you. You are treating these people with dignity, with respect, with kindness, with an open ear, with firm boundaries, all of these things that we talk about on Lovin Leadership, because it's not for the faint of heart. Leading in a way that celebrates the human spirit and guides and directs it in a positive way. And just think about, when each of these 20 people go home and their ripples go out, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a believer too, Amber.
It's not just 20 people. It's 20 people plus each one of their spheres of influence.
Absolutely. We, have learned so much about, things that are contagious lately and everything, these bad things that are, whether it's toxins or viruses. But you know what? Happiness, goodness, kindness, respect, unity, all of these things, they are contagious as well. So I love that you focus on that in your work, in your life, in the way you spread that with your clients as well. I'm sure this is not left out of your programming.
No, it's great to see it. We love to see it with our clients and with our feedback. From a personal note, I do one-on-ones with every person in my team, and I love hearing the stories of, we did goal setting as a team, and we'll set, some personal goals, and then I did it with my family, and we
yes.
And it's those types of, we always talk about we're a learning company, so we're constantly learning ourselves. They go, oh, I learned this, and then I bonded with my sibling over it, and we were able to do that, and this is the type of thing that just gets me amped up. It gets me so excited. So yes, I love
we get along so well.
Yeah, love hearing it from the clients, love hearing it from the learners. I love hearing it from my team as well. They're a fantastic group of people.
Well, I as much as I would always love to continue this conversation, we're going to wrap it up for the sake of time. But I want to ask, what is going on in your world, in Amber Vanderburg's world, that you'd like to share with our listening audience? What's going on that we should know about?
Yeah. As far as what's coming up, we're getting ready to I'm getting ready to go to Europe. I'll be in Germany for the whole month of January, we are doing a HR of Tomorrow event. So if there's any listeners in Germany, I'd love to have you there. So we'll be interviewing with HR executives from global enterprises for several days. So that's something I'm personally very excited about. So I'll be working there, and then I have a few days going skiing as well in the mountains. So I'm very excited.
Nice.
Very excited. We have been working tirelessly within our online learning and creating micro courses. So we have 7 new micro courses that will be coming out on various platforms in the next few months. So we have 7 new courses that should be coming out. We're very, very excited in the next few months. So be on the lookout for that.
Your courses are really interactive, right? I'm going to throw out a word here, but correct me. Almost, you use a sophisticated form of gamification, if that isn't kind of a dirty word in this area, where it's not fun and games, but it's very interactive and engaging, and not just lecture or click through kind of stuff. They really connect.
Whenever the pandemic happened, we I told you we went from Broadway to television. And we had people say that, oh, no one will watch a screen for that long. And we said, well, we know for a fact that people will watch a television screen for a long time. And sometimes they learn things. And so we actually watched educational television to learn how to build our courses. So that's where that interactivity comes in from. I mean, lessons from Sesame Street, honestly.
Hey, we're better to learn from. They started this gig, right?
They've been doing it for a long time. And so that's where those action steps and that interactivity comes from, is the learning from the people who did it first and the people that did it the best.
Well, fantastic. And thank you so much, Amber Vanderburg of Pathwayz Group, for taking time out. I mean, you're leaving for Europe for a great big chunk of time with, this big conference and all kinds of things going on. And you took the time to spend it with us. And I so deeply appreciate your time, energy, information, and just hanging out with a good friend for an hour to talk about leadership in the best sense. So thank you.
Friendship. Oh, it was great conversation. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Beth. I love it.
And thank you for tuning in to the Lovin Leadership Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, share this episode, and hit that notifications button so you won't miss out on a single thing. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and that it inspired you to be a uniquely better leader. Remember that leading with love is a superpower that transforms the world around us. So let's go out there and make a difference, one loving act at a time. This podcast was made possible by the College of St. Mary, offering a fast-track opportunity for professionals to achieve a master's degree in organizational leadership online in just 12 months. Tailored for working individuals, our program paves the way for career advancement. Take the next stride in your journey with the College of St. Mary. Apply now at csm.edu/MSOL and unlock your leadership potential today. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey we call Lovin Leadership. Now it's time for you to take action and unleash your true leadership potential. Here are 4 easy steps you can take today. Number 1, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Number 2, share. Share the love with your friends, colleagues, and fellow leaders. Number 3, connect to our Lovin Leadership community by clicking the link below. And finally, take the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained from this podcast and put it into action. The Lovin Leadership Podcast is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. Together, let's rewrite the leadership narrative and create a world where love, passion, and purpose thrive. I can't wait to see the incredible impact you'll make as a Lovin leader. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, lead on with love.